a low of 31. Freezing drizzle officially reported at O'Hare in 26. Your next news update at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, America First with Sebastian Gorka. Weekday afternoons at 3 on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So at Davos, where our bettors convened for the World Economic Forum 2024, there were a couple of skunks at the garden party. We brought you the newly minted president of Argentina last week, Javier Milei, and the long live freedom, damn it speech that he gave to the assembled central planners. It was brilliant. It was fun.
Yes.
I mean, it was like Hayek 101, but you know, it's so unusual, especially directed at that audience, that it was a joy to watch. Well, he wasn't the only one. Kevin Roberts, our friend from the Heritage Foundation, he's the president there, he had a message too, and he put it between some eyes, just like Milei did when some Euro wimp talked about how they're convened in Davos to protect liberal small L democracy in Western Europe. Here's what Kevin Roberts and of course expressed their trepidation about a Trump reelection and obviously the MAGA dictatorship that would ensue. Kevin Roberts had this to say.
It's laughable that you would, or anyone would, describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy. It's equally,
standing up for it.
It's equally laughable to use the word dictatorship at Davos and aim that at President Trump. In fact, I think that's absurd. But I'm going to step aside from that constructive criticism and instead answer your question.
Yep.
And I'm going to be substantive here. President Trump, if he's the next president, for that matter, I think whoever the next conservative president, is going to take on the power of the elites, which I mentioned earlier. But the thing that I want to drive home here, the very reason that I'm here at Davos, is to explain to many people in this room and who are watching, with all due respect, nothing personal, but that you're part of the problem. Political elites tell the average people on 3 or 4 or 5 issues that the reality is X, when in fact reality is Y. Take immigration. Elites tell us that open borders and even illegal immigration are okay. The average person tells us in the United States that both rob them of the American way of life. They're right. President Trump will take that on behalf of the average American. Elites also tell us that public safety isn't a problem in big American cities. Just travel to New York or Washington or Dallas, Texas. The average person will tell you that the lack of public safety damages not just the American way of life, but their life. President Trump will take that on. Thirdly, I guess the favorite at the World Economic Forum is climate change. Elites tell us that we have this existential crisis with so-called climate change, so much so that climate alarmism is probably the greatest cause for mental health crisis in the world. The solutions, the average person know, based on climate change are far worse and more harmful and cost more human lives, especially in Europe during the time that you need heating, than do the problem and the problems themselves. Fourth, 2 more here, Robin. Okay. The fourth, China. The number one adversary, not just to the United States, but to free people on planet Earth. Not only do we at Davos not say that, we give the Chinese Communist Party a platform. Count on President Trump ending that nonsense. And fifth, as we sit here, another supranational organization, the World Health Organization, is discussing foisting gender ideology upon the global South. These are practices that are under review, if not being rejected, by countries in Northern Europe. The new president, especially if it's President Trump, will, as you like to say, trust the science. He will understand the basic biological reality of manhood and womanhood. And do you know why? Not because of retribution, not because he's a dictator, but because he has the power of the American people behind him. And it's connected to Senator Portman's excellent point that in addition to needing a vigorous executive, We look forward to having the popular will inform both the House and Senate in 2025 to pass laws on all of those issues and many others. Ultimately, Robin, I think President Trump, if in fact he wins a second term, is going to be inspired by the wise words of Javier Milei, who said that he was in power not to guide sheep, but to awaken lions. That's what the average American and the average free person on planet Earth wants out of leaders.
Pretty good. Pretty good. And somebody else inadvertently sort of confirmed what Kevin Roberts was saying. This is Emma Tucker. She's the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, talking about the new reality of the media landscape and the new reality for legacy brands like the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal.
When there's a big news event, a big world event, people still come to the legacy brands. We still have a lot of trust. But I think you only have to go back. I think we have to maintain that trust, and we have to work at maintaining it in a way that we didn't have to do not so long ago. So if you go back really not that long ago, as I say, we owned the news. We were the gatekeepers, and we very much owned the facts as well. If it said it in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, then that was a fact. Nowadays, people can go to all sorts of different sources for the news, and they're much more questioning about what we're saying.
Right. They are for good reason, because of what Kevin Roberts explained. Because the D.C. press corps and the left that controls all the cultural and civic institutions in this country continues to try to tell people things that they know to be untrue. The gaslighting, the not believing your lying eyes business on open borders and public safety and the rest of the issues that Kevin Roberts ticked off. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Jed Babbin, former United States Deputy Undersecretary of Defense, contributor to the Washington Times and the American Spectator as well. Jed, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning, guys.
So Kevin Roberts, take whichever part of it you want or the review in total, but I was specifically thinking a comment from you about the specter of the Chinese communists that Roberts raised for a group that, I'm talking about the World Economic Forum types, that is inclined to genuflect before President Xi and said communists.
Well, I think whatever Mr. Roberts said, and I listened to it pretty closely, the real fact is that China is an enemy of freedom, and we are unprepared to take it on. And I don't think, and with all due respect to Mr. Roberts and Mr. Trump, as much as I will vote for him very gladly in November, I don't think he's going to be doing much about China. He might say some things, he might raise some tariffs, but I don't think he's going to address the fundamental questions that we have in dealing with China, such as how to deter it and how to deter it from attacking Taiwan.
How should he be thinking about those questions?
Well, I think Mr. Trump needs to be thinking in realistic terms rather than just thinking he's going to charm Mr. Xi into whatever he wants him to do. I think we have to rebuild a lot of things. Most importantly, we have to build satellite defenses, which we do not have. We do not have the means of defending our satellites, and the Chinese and the Russians and pretty much everybody in the world knows that if we lose our satellites, we're pretty much deaf, dumb, and blind and fighting a war. So we need to get those things going. We need to make ballistic missile defenses much stronger, and we need to rebuild. We need to rebuild our militaries, number one, to expunge the wokeness that Biden has injected into them. And quite frankly, it's going to take years and years to do that. We also need to get the people more inclined to join the military. We are now in a very bad place. We do not have enough pilots. We do not have enough sailors. We do not have pretty much enough anything. And I saw in the paper this morning that the Army is wanting now to make more accountants and diversity officers out of their infantry officers. So we're going absolutely in the wrong direction. These are a lot of things. I could go on and on and on, and I don't want to bore you guys, but there's a lot to be done that's not being done. And quite frankly, Mr. Trump didn't do it when he was president either.
Well, our enemies are watching. They're seeing all of this dye stuff that's infiltrating our military, right?
Sure, absolutely. Well, and that's the problem, Amy. We have so much that we are showing the enemy so many weaknesses, so many points of vulnerability that they frankly can't even keep up with them. We have artificial intelligence. Well, not really artificial intelligence. You have machine learning. We have machine learning impinging on everything from the 2024 election to our ability to defend ourselves. So, there's a lot going on, and ain't nobody keeping up with it.
So if Trump and the Congress were to instigate the sort of rebuilding that you're talking about, the buttressing of defense systems that need to be buttressed, is that enough of a deterrent to give Chinese communists and other expansionist enemies of America, like the Iranians, is that enough to give them pause? I mean, if we can start down that path that you're describing, can we stop some of the unrest that is the instability that is being instigated by those enemies of America?
No, but we can set a timeline for them. We can set a deadline. We can have. Pardon me. We are going to take years and years to rebuild what needs to be rebuilt. But at least at that point, we would say, in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, you're not going to be able to get away with this stuff anymore. And that sets a timeline for them that, quite frankly, might accelerate things like the attack on Taiwan.
I mean, what do you think that Xi acquiring Taiwan is just a matter of time, or is it still an open question?
Oh, I think it's certainly not anything more than a matter of time. They need to understand that they are ready to do so. They need to they want to do it without, obliterating Taiwan. They want to capture Taiwan, not necessarily intact, but in the means where it can continue to be productive as part of China, not as part of Taiwan. But I think they have a set path, and I predicted, I believe on this show, that they're going to attack Taiwan before January 2025, and that the only way that would be extended, that deadline, is if Mr. Biden wins re-election, God forbid.
What about Ukraine? I mean, you even have, you've got Senator Slingblade there in Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, now talking about, border security and so forth, and he's become a lightning rod. And of course, Republicans, so even John Fetterman gets it. But this is all a predicate for him saying, well, border security, because I want the funding for Ukraine and for Taiwan, which is still the Schumer posture. And so what about that? How should Trump and, prospectively, and congressional Republicans right now be thinking about this global deal that the Democrats are trying to push, and be thinking about specifically Ukraine and what is to be done in support or not in support of Zelensky between now and November?
Well, to start off with, unless the border policies change, unless Biden reverses himself thoroughly and really closes the border to illegal immigration, I don't think there should be for more aid to Ukraine or more aid to anybody else. I say that advisedly because I'm a very big supporter of Ukraine. I think we need to support them, but Biden does not seem willing to do that without keeping the border open. So I think the Republicans are stuck, and I think it's very much worth a government shutdown in order to, quite frankly, get this border security initiative going.
I agree with that. Let's say that. Well, just setting that aside for a second. I mean, what is still possible in your view in Ukraine? How should we conceive where Russia and Ukraine is? What our interests at present are, and what we can do in service of those interests, realistically?
Well, our interest is definitely to stop Putin. He will not stop with Ukraine. He will try to go into the NATO countries, and the NATO countries are barely able, and probably not even able, to defend themselves. So we're going to be on the hook for that. We need to be able to defend not Ukraine's borders necessarily, but our borders, as well as defending Ukraine or helping Ukraine defend itself. They're at a huge disadvantage. They have less than 10% of the population of Russia. They have very little capacity to produce military weapons at this point. The Russians have destroyed most of it. I have been advocating for, almost 2 years now, that we had needed to send fighter aircraft to Ukraine to turn the tide. I think we still need to do that, but we're not doing it. Ukrainian pilots are training on F-16s here and in other places, but it's going to be too late. I don't think Ukraine can last. I think that's a damn shame. I think we need to be doing more, but the Russians are pretty clearly winning in Ukraine, and they're not going to give up. Putin has an ideological bent towards capturing Ukraine. I don't want to go into all the details, but his philosopher, a guy by the name of Alexander Dugin, was basically saying and writing, and Putin believes this, that unless you capture Ukraine first, that talking about reestablishing the greater Russian empire is just a waste of time. So Putin needs to do this. He wants to capture Ukraine, and I think he's going to keep on grinding as long as he's in power.
Let's move over to Israel, because the U.S., Egypt, Qatar, they're putting pressure for a two-state solution, asking Israel to accept a peace plan. What should they do?
Well, I think Israel has already rejected this peace plan because it's a recipe for Israel to lose the war. I mean, basically what they're proposing, and Hamas agrees, is to stop the fighting in the Gaza Strip, gradually withdraw Israeli troops, and somehow, maybe, possibly, the Hamas people would release the hostages. And that would leave Hamas in charge of the Gaza Strip. Israel can't do that. They just simply can't. So their best offer, their best advice, my best advice to them would be what they're doing is ignoring Biden and just keeping on going with the Gaza Strip campaign.
Judd Babbin, former United States Deputy Undersecretary of Defense, contributor to the Washington Times and American Spectator. Judd, thanks as always.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply or play. Stop, opt out.
Oh, Jake, this new man cave you built is crazy. How big is that TV?
It's 100 inches.
Serious upgrade. How'd you pay for all this?
Easy. I got a home equity line of credit from Figure. I got approved in 5 minutes and funding in just 5 days.
Hold up. You're saying you can get approved for a HELOC from Figure in 5 minutes with funding in just 5 days?
Yup. It's that fast and easy. The application is 100% online with no in-person appraisal. Plus, there's no out-of-pocket costs. Just fast access to the cash you need to use however you want.
I need a HELOC from Figure. How do I get started?
Just send them a text.
Text SERIOUS to 200-300 to get up to $400,000.